to see so many people out on a stormy night. It's a dark and stormy night in Berkeley. But I'm going to transport you 2 years ago. We're now in Italy. And it's a hot and humid day. "I've got to get out of here," screamed a voice from the corner. "You don't understand. I'm claustrophobic." Now, a short time before, my wife Susan and I had boarded an elevator in a poorly air-conditioned archaeological museum in Rome, along with 12 other people from our tour, and Rachel, our English tour guide. We weren't going up very far, just a couple of floors, but we'd done a lot of stairs on this tour already. And this seemed like a simple way to save energy on a hot day. Rachel pushed the 2 button, the doors closed, the elevator lurched, and nothing happened. I looked at Susan. She looked at me with wide eyes and a big smile. I knew that getting stuck in an elevator was one of her worst fears. Rachel said, "Well, this is different." And she hit the open button. Nothing happened. A voice from the corner said, "What's going on?" Rachel said, "Well, I guess we're not going anywhere yet. All we have to do is get the door open. I'll just call for help on the headsets." Now, we all had these little lightweight headsets on our tour. They called them whispers, and we were all able to listen. The tour guides had microphones on there, so they could talk to us in museums or outdoors or wherever we were. And now Rachel was going to use the headsets, use the whispers to call for help. Susan hadn't had an elevator phobia when we first got together in graduate school many decades before. But over the years, she developed a real antipathy for taking the lift. Sometimes this led to awkward situations, like when we traveled with our kids. I would elevate with the children and the baggage, and she would often leave us and go find the stairs in order to avoid the elevator. Now, as you probably know, in large public buildings, the elevators aren't always near the stairs. And the stairs don't always go to exactly the same floors that the elevators do, and sometimes the stairs are locked. Occasionally we'd get separated, and this was kind of an awkward situation, but not for very long. The worst situation came one day at the Eiffel Tower. One summer we took our kids to Europe, to England and France. And one day we promised to take them to the top of the Eiffel Tower. They were really excited. Susan was not excited about it, but willing to go along. When we got in the Eiffel Tower, and you know how the base goes like this, and the first elevator, there are 2 or 3 to get to the top. The first elevator goes up the tower like this. It's kind of cool. We got to the first level above the ground, and she popped out and said, "See you later." And I went to the next level with the kids, and we had to wait online for another elevator. And then to the very top, we had to fight our way through the crowds to get to the railing to be able to see out, because that was the whole purpose of going up, was to be able to see out. And we had to wait online to come back down, change to another elevator, wait online. And by the time we got down to the ground, a couple of hours had elapsed, and I was starting to get a little worried. This was before our cell phones worked outside the country. So we had really no way to contact each other. We did find each other pretty soon after we got to the ground, but to add to the anxiety, just before she saw us, as Susan was walking across the plaza under the big base of the Eiffel Tower, a human body in apparent suicide fell bam on the ground right next to her. But that's a different story. Earlier on that same trip, we were in London, and we took the subway, we took the tube wherever we were going to go. And she would walk down many, many stairs to get there. And then when we get to our destination, she'd walk up, sometimes over 100 stairs if there was no escalator. I would take the elevator to the street with the kids. We'd wait on the sidewalk for her. But over the years, long, long staircases became much more challenging. And she came to me and she said, "You know, if we're going to be able to travel together, I think my phobia is getting in the way." Now, I had been very fortunate. I'd been very fortunate to be able to travel all over and work all over the globe during my long career as a cinematographer. But we always planned to be able to travel, hoped to be able to travel together after retirement. And now she wanted to deal with her elevator phobia. So she sought help. She found a psychologist, a behavioral psychologist, and she started to see him every week. Although it would be many months before they actually went near an elevator. He taught her, he gave her exercises to deal with anxiety. He taught her how to find her happy place, how to visualize calm and bring it into her daily life. He taught her to acknowledge the fear and told her it may never go away. You might always have the fear, but what you have control over is how you respond to it. He told her to always remember that going up or down in a museum or an airport or any large public building, getting to where she was going was much more important than giving into the fear. That she had a choice. After months of this, they did start to practice together in elevators. First together, then Susan alone. I practiced with her a couple of times. And after a year of her therapy, I took a picture of her posing in an elevator in a saucy pose, which she printed and framed and gave to her therapist as a parting gift. Now, in the elevator in Rome, the voice from the corner yelled, "We're stuck!" Rachel said, "Well, we're still on the ground floor. I'm calling for help, it's okay. We're still on the ground floor. We haven't gone anywhere. We're not stuck between floors. The rest of our group is right outside the door. The main desk for the museum is right there. I'm sure they'll do something for us soon." Another woman on the tour called out, "It'll be fine, dear. None of us are very happy about this, you know. Let's all try to chill together now, shall we?" Voice from the corner said, "I've got to get out of here. You don't understand. I'm claustrophobic." I tried to figure out who was talking. It was pretty crowded and hot in the elevator. And I looked back over my right shoulder, and in the far right corner in the back of the elevator, I could see the woman who was shrieking. I turned to Susan and I said, "It's Ellen!" And she called out, "Ellen, it'll be fine, don't worry." But we both knew that just telling people not to worry was often a fool's errand. Ellen called out, "How do you know? We may be stuck here forever." Rachel's on the headset talking to the other tour guide. "Si, grazie." And she announced, "They're going to get the key now." They don't know where the key is? We're stuck. We'll never get out of this goddamn elevator. "No," said Rachel. "They know where the key is. They just have to go get it. And remember, dear, everyone can hear you on the headsets." Just then we heard a mechanical sound, a rattling. Rachel said, "See, they've got the key. They're going to open the door. Everything's fine." And then that hopeful sound, that tick-a-tick-a-tick, stopped, followed by a loud metallic clang. "They dropped the key, they lost it, we're stuck forever." Everyone can still hear you on the headsets, dear. "I don't give a crap, they're incompetent, that's the problem. Nobody knows what they're doing around here. Nobody in this goddamn backward country. Tell them to call the fucking fire department." Susan called out, Ellen, I understand. I know what you're going through. I'm claustrophobic too. I'm afraid as well. But if you and I can try not to panic, it'll be much better for everyone." This was good advice. Not telling her to deny her feelings, but to acknowledge the fear, but urging her to control her behavior in response to it and not give in to the panic that she was feeling as her heart, I'm sure, was pounding. At that point, we heard that hopeful rattling sound again, tick 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 tick, followed by another loud clang. Susan called out, "Ellen, deep breath, stay with me, try to stay calm." I looked in the front left corner of the elevator. There was a tall guy with a straw hat, Ellen's husband, staring at the ceiling. Silent. Just then, we heard a loud bam, bam, bam sound, and a steel rod came protruding through the rubber gasket that separated the door. Whoever was wielding it on the other side of the doors was jerking it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth violently, desperate to free us. I watched in amazement as what looked like steel doors buckled and groaned and then popped open with a loud scraping sound. The 15 of us piled out of the elevator, nearly knocking over the two sweaty Italian guards who'd been trying so hard to do it. I looked at my watch. In the eternity since we boarded the elevator, 10 minutes had elapsed. We swarmed up 60 stairs, the two flights we've been trying so hard to avoid. We went up 2 flights of stairs and ornate marble staircases and hooked up with the rest of our group, and they said, "What happened? Where were you?" Because they were out of range of the headsets. We filled them in. We told them about getting stuck. Some people told them about Ellen freaking out. I was so proud of Susan. She faced her worst fear, and she'd stayed calm, and she'd helped to keep Ellen calm. Because after Susan had told her to breathe and take a deep breath, Ellen whimpered, but she stopped shrieking. I told some of our fellow travelers about Susan's elevator phobia and her treatment and her success. And several of them went up to her and praised her and thanked her for not losing it in the elevator. And as I thought back, several days later, as I thought back on all this, my memory started to warp in a weird way. And our confinement didn't seem as important as our swarming up the stairs afterward, feeling liberated and like a conquering army taking a strategic hill. But over the next few days, as we absorbed the wonders of ancient Rome, and the Pantheon and the Sistine Chapel, I thought about friends of ours at home who could not travel because of fears of airplanes and bridges, fears of strange food and strange people and strange toilets, fears of disrupted daily schedules, and people who couldn't travel because of fears of elevators. I thought about our recent trips to Italy and France and Ireland, and upcoming trips to Scotland and Israel, and I began to appreciate my dear wife anew. By dealing with her phobia, by dealing with her fears, we would not be trapped at home. She'd opened up the world for us and given us the gift of travel. Thank you.